Hi, everyone. Welcome to our informational webinar on the third derivative Accelerator. I see that some folks are coming in. That's great. I'm sure people will keep coming in as we're talking, but we have a lot to talk about today, so we'll get started. So just some introductions and housekeeping just to start us off. We'll have a few polls going out to get to know you better along the way. You can submit questions in the Q&A section of Zoom. There's no need to wait until the end when we ask for your questions. Our team will either answer them in the chat at the end or we'll resurface them in our Q&A. There will be a recording of this afterwards, so if you have a team member that can't join or you'd like to revisit any of this content, you will be able to do so, so don't worry too much about that. So I'll be one of your hosts today. My name is Maddie Dinsdale, and I'm on our startup portfolio team. I'm one of D3's account managers focused on the electricity sector, so I have the pleasure of working directly with many of our startups and many folks in our network. I'm joined by my colleagues here today, Lindsay, Ali, and Anna Sophia. Lindsay is from our research team, and she works a lot on our startup due diligence, investment theses, and some other technical reviews. And Anna Sophia heads D3's new industrial innovation cohort, so you'll be hearing more from both of them shortly, and they're both fantastic resources. So thank you so much for registering and taking some time out of your busy schedules to join us today. We know most of you are on the call are startup leaders, and we know really that you are super, super busy people. So really thank you for your interest in our program and also for carving out this time. Our goal today is to provide you with information about Third Derivative and our program and to give you a chance to ask any questions that you have about us. If you come from a startup that fits with our mission and requirements, we'd really love to have you apply. Our deadline is fast approaching on October 26th, so please get those applications in. You can see our agenda here today. It's pretty simple. We're going to give you a little bit of history about third derivative and our theory of change, and we'll walk you through some really important information about our selection process, give you a quick overview of our acceleration program itself, as well as our focused cohorts. And then, of course, like I've said, we'll have lots of time for Q&A at the end. So let's jump in. Great. So to give you a bit of history into Third Derivative as an organization, we started around at the end of 2019 and early 2020, and a few things sort of happened and were recognized by our RMI colleagues, categorized here into two things, into the climate and acceleration imperative. So on the climate side, there was a really strong belief that to bend the emission curves in many emitting sectors, particularly those hard to abate sectors that we talk about so much, we needed solutions to be developed and critically deployed at a much, much faster pace. In addition, our team knew that greenhouse gas removal had to be part of that solution. By IPCC estimates, we will absolutely need carbon removal to get to net zero by 2050, plus we'll need gigatons of carbon removal afterwards to get atmospheric greenhouse gas levels back into check. And then on the acceleration side, around the same time, the IEA showed that nearly half of the technologies that we need to get to net zero in the energy sector were still in development, so in that really early TRL phase. That was on top of, the many solutions that were working and commercialized, but still had that green premium. So, not yet affordable compared to their emitting alternatives. And as many of you know, climate technologies have been relatively hard to commercialize for a variety of reasons that you're all probably quite familiar with. And until fairly recently, and sometimes still the case, it's hard for them to attract venture investment and support. So of course, there are many reasons for this. Often these solutions are capitally intense. The development cycles are longer than your typical Silicon Valley VC cycle. We know this is particularly true for hard tech startups, which on average take about 9 years for an exit. So that's required the venture model to make some changes and also can require startups to tap into other types of investments. And often it can be very difficult for these startups to reach customers. There are large incumbents at play. Many startups in this space are navigating really regulated markets, meaning new entrants usually have to jump through hoops to be able to just enter the market and meet customers at all. So like I've said, for the audience here, I'm sure none of this is new information, but these are the reasons that we built D3 as a new model for climate tech commercialization, where we bring together an entire ecosystem of players in a collaborative approach to address these challenges. So moving on to D3's why, what, and how. So ultimately, D3 is built to find, fund, and massively scale impactful climate tech innovations. Our ecosystem approach brings together various stakeholders that are absolutely needed to help startups address multiple commercialization, scaling barriers, and challenges. And so the way we do this is by leveraging RMI's incredible techno-economic and regulatory knowledge. For those who aren't familiar with RMI, it's an independent nonprofit that was founded over 40 years ago as a think and do tank focused on the energy transition, and now has nearly 700 techno-economic analysts and market and policy experts all around the world. We're also tapping into D3 and RMI's networks of corporations, governments, investors, philanthropies, and other nonprofits, all the stakeholders that are needed to be brought into the D3 ecosystem to help startups across all the emission sectors commercialize and scale faster. So our journey to date, like I said before, we've launched fairly recently, December 2020, and we've grown really quickly. We've seen over 2,800 applications globally, resulting in a portfolio of 225 startups that have been brought in now across 11 cohorts. We're rigorously vetting all of these applicants and bringing in cohorts that are high quality with significant impact potential across all greenhouse gas emission sectors, and particularly those hard to abate ones. Some VC partners have really described us as the best climate tech deal flow, and many VCs who are not even our direct partners or within our direct ecosystem are still part of our deal flow newsletter to keep tabs on our portfolio of startups, and they often ask for introductions where relevant. We're helping to propel more funding and deals to our startups very quickly, with now over 2 billion of capital raised by our startups collectively, which is a really exciting number. In addition to funding, we've also facilitated corporate startup deals and pilots with many more in discussion, or those that are confidential and we can't list here. So to look a little bit into our portfolio, this is what our portfolio looks like today. You can find more detail on all of our startups in our portfolio page on our website as well. So please do check that out if you're interested. In our selection process, we look top down at where the emissions are coming from and actively look for startups that can solve the most difficult challenges and address the biggest sources. And because of that, as you can see here, our portfolio is actually roughly mapped to the major emission categories. We're supporting a lot of companies in industrial decarbonization, the built environment, electricity generation, transportation, and other areas that at least have historically been underserved and underinvested in. In our program, you'd be joining some amazing peers across North and South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Oceania, and we're working on similar or adjacent problems to you. We offer a platform for you to connect and share that experience together through many different kind of peer-to-peer interactions. So now I'm really happy to pass it along to my colleague Lindsay to introduce herself further and talk to you a little bit more about our selection process.
Thanks so much, Maddie. And a reminder, if you have questions as we go, feel free to put that in the Q&A. Yes, hello, everyone. I'm Lindsay Rasmussen. As Maddie mentioned, I'm a manager on our research and diligence team. More broadly, I lead our building sector efforts as well. So I'm going to talk more about our selection process and minimum requirements. And first, kind of want to introduce our portfolio and ecosystem a bit more. So one of the first questions we get is often around geographic scope and industry focused. As Maddie just showed and talked to, D3 is very broad and industry agnostic. We have 225 startups in our portfolio now from most geographies globally and across all emission sectors. As a program, our advantage really is quite simple. We are the best networked climate accelerator on the planet. So the way to think about us is as a resource for you as founders to be leveraged at your discretion. And that network includes over 800 subject matter energy policy acceleration experts from founding partners at RMI and as well as New Energy Nexus. We have 12 global partners, including Shell, BP, FedEx, Microsoft, and AT&T, and then 17 international investment partners with more than 7 billion in assets under management. So on the next page, to talk a bit more about our selection process, we follow 3 primary steps. Our first step is a screening due diligence process. And during this, what we're evaluating is if an applicant meets our minimum criteria for climate abatement potential, which we'll discuss a bit more after this. Our other minimum requirements are at least 2 full-time employees, TRLs at or beyond TRL 4, meaning you have a minimum working prototype, that your startup is for profit, and that there's no basic science risk to the technology being developed. From there, we do a deeper dive on, a deeper dive on the techno-economics of the startup. So we're evaluating the technical and economic feasibility of the solution in terms of viability and scalability. the customer value proposition and competitive landscape, and the pathways to scale for startups and technologies that apply. So during this phase, we often set up calls with the founders to dive into specific follow-up questions. And then the final step here is our R&D team will write memos on our final selection startups that pass our criteria. That gets shared with our broader ecosystem for review. So in this phase, we're looking to evaluate our abilities to support each startup with their milestones throughout this 18-month program. And that includes commercialization, fundraising, team building, and even mentorship and technical feedback. Next slide. So diving into the climate abatement potential component, one of Third Derivative's key foundations is the bar we set for climate abatement potential. So we have 3 categories with different abatement requirements, which I'll talk through and give some examples as well. So you know where you fit and kind of what we're looking for. So the first is a direct mitigation measure, or DMM, as you'll see on the slide. These are startups that completely displace existing or legacy GHG emitting products or services. This includes like alternative cements or renewable energy, or that have a direct drawdown effect like carbon capture, reduce GHG emissions from legacy products or services like low carbon building installations, or improve the performance of other low to net zero GHG solutions. And for this category, we require a minimum of 1/4 gigaton of carbon abatement. If a global solution, if more of a regional solution, our minimum requirement is equal to or greater than 1% of local or regional emissions. The second category is technologies that are critical system enablers. So this includes products or services that are necessary for some direct mitigation measures to fulfill their drawdown potential. An easy example of this is like long duration energy storage or charging infrastructure. And here we require 1/2 gigaton of carbon abatement potential for global solutions, or greater than 2% for regional solutions, 2% of regional emissions. And then the final category here is diffusion enhancing enablers. So these are solutions that break down barriers to adoption for other solutions or can speed up market penetration. Examples here are like softwares that can de-risk or enable, say, low carbon material design and selection, or fast track permitting for like home electrification, or even financing platforms for, say, renewable energy assets. And for these, since they're the less direct of an impact, we require a greater carbon drawdown, which is about 1 gigaton of climate abatement potential, or greater than 5% if a regional solution. Next page. So Maddie will dive into all of this a little bit more, but just to give a high-level overview of why D3, what we're able to offer, there's a lot of reasons. So first, we're bespoke in that we work with each startup individually to support you where you are. And that starts with a needs assessment and a tailor-made success plan. We are very commercial and deal focused, meaning we help to unlock capital and customer mobilization through curated introductions and facilitated deal making with our VC and corporate partners. We're accessible and light touch. So even though our program is longer than most at 18 months, it's really tailored to each startup to support you when you need it most. That 18 months allows us to support you through at least one funding period or one valley of death, as they say in this industry. And what that means is there's times where you'll be super engaged with our team and times where you'll be minimally engaged, and that is as expected for startups in our program. The last 2 here, so we're ecosystem driven. While we're fully remote and have no in-person requirements, we do offer a ton of valuable virtual and in-person opportunities, including peer-to-peer sessions, pitch sessions, opportunities to present and network at in-person events, and really helpful info sessions. For example, one we did last year was on DOE grant funding opportunities specifically. And then finally, we're no cost and non-exclusive, so you pay nothing to join and partake. And we welcome startups that are participating in multiple accelerators. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Maddie to talk through the Accelerator program and D3's offerings in a bit more detail.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Lindsay. I really appreciate that overview. So I'll dive into all those points in a little more detail. So want to highlight again, as Lindsay said, we are a fully remote program, and that allows us to be accessible across the globe. So you'll see that reflected in our portfolio with startups coming from different continents and different countries around the world. So when developing program, we really do aspire to take a highly tailored approach. So we understand, like Lindsay said, that all startups' needs are and support requiremements really do vary based on a multitude of factors. So we do kind of think of Third Derivative as a choose your own adventure experience, where there are consistently a large menu of resources to take advantage of, all oriented around knowledge sharing, capital mobilization, and commercial deal making. But we have a very light touch approach to the actual program requirements. So really, in fact, as you can see on the slide, there are only a few obligatory requirements of the program. The first is regular check-ins with D3 staff. During onboarding, all D3 startups are assigned to an account manager. That could be me if you're in the electricity sector. And that account manager is responsible for meeting with them on a regular cadence that typically ranges from monthly to quarterly, depending on your needs at a particular time. On those calls, we talk about your recent updates, your challenges, and our team really works through the information you give us on those calls to match you to resources that can support you. So they are really super important in the program. Between those check-in calls, we have an internal ecosystem platform that we do ask you keep updated with things like your fundraising rounds, your pitch deck, and sort of your interest in different resources at the time. And we share that information with our investor and corporate partners to hopefully produce some inbound interest for your business as well. And lastly, each quarter we do send out a survey. It's not very long, takes 10, 20 minutes max to fill out, and it helps us understand how we're doing, gather some feedback, and collect growth metrics around revenue, capital raised, so that we can understand our overall portfolio and its health. And in terms of requirements, that's really it. We hope that this low time commitment does allow our team to curate an experience that reflects exactly what you need to grow your business. And we really want to support and evolve our support with your growth. We intentionally really did build the program to be flexible. Like Lindsay said, you can lean in certain months when programming is really relevant to your team and lean out when your team is really heads down working on deployment or a pilot or something like that. So let's dive into a few of the different options available, starting with capital mobilization and commercial deal making. So we do have a network of global partners. They span a ton of different industries, tech companies, oil and gas majors, finance, entertainment, telecom, energy providers, many, many more. And we're always growing that network as well. And we also have international VC funds in our partner network that invest from pre-seed to growth stage businesses. Together, those partners work really closely with us. They help with our selection process and provide feedback on which businesses and technologies they might engage with if they're selected in the program. With our VC partners, we have a ton of great examples of our partners leading or participating in funding rounds in our portfolio and becoming important parts of our startups' growth stories. A lot of this is true because our fundraising support often starts before our investor introductions actually take place. So our team and our mentors, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second, they work regularly with our founders to help develop their fundraising strategy. So things like identifying the right sources of capital and investor profiles, offering deck and pitch feedback, discussing valuations, board management, and really ultimately our team works very hard to develop investor lists that we collaborate on together, and we help create introductions to that list. So this sets our teams up for success with our own investor partners and our larger investor network. So for example, Volo Earth has invested in 13 of our startups alone, and all of our partners are regularly meeting with teams and leading or following on rounds. And similarly, on the corporate side, we're always looking to make introductions where our corporate partners can explore pilots or commercial relationships with our startups. Also, they provide mentorship to our teams on their approach to BD. And in some cases, they can also make direct equity investments if they do have a CVC, a corporate venture capital arm. So we've seen partners like Mid-American, Berkshire Hathaway Energy launch pilots with our portfolio that have resulted in really important proof points for our companies and also expanded into full commercial deployments that are saving our partners millions of dollars annually and really are continuing to grow as well. Another example is Shell. They have brought in multiple teams to their Game Changer and their New Energy Challenge programs after being introduced through D3. They've also launched several pilot projects, supported international expansion of our portfolio, or invested directly through their CVC as well, so engaging in multiple different ways. Third Derivative also does have a specific partnership team that meets with all of our partners on a regular basis, approximately every month. So they're highlighting interesting startups, and they're real advocates for our portfolio with these corporate partners. And this doesn't even include our much larger network of investors, corporates, and other ecosystem players through RMI and through Third Derivative that we're plugged into and are able to facilitate introductions to on behalf of our startups. So jumping to mentorship. Beyond our direct partners, we do have a healthy network of mentors that volunteer their time to support our teams. These folks are fantastic. They're a real mix of entrepreneurs themselves, technical experts, corporate executives, or other leaders that bring a really wide variety of skills, sector expertise, and global experience to take advantage of. Building a startup, even if you're a serial founder, is a massive undertaking, and it requires developing new skills and tackling new challenges constantly, as I'm sure you're all very aware of. Through our mentor community, we hope to connect you with experienced people that really have been there, done that, and can provide feedback where it's needed, and ideally help you avoid some of those common pitfalls that sometimes entrepreneurs fall into. They also bring, oh, sorry, if we could go to the next slide, please. Excellent. So we do also have a really interesting and kind of unique part that we bring to our Accelerator program. So a big part of D3 and RMI's work is publishing research in spaces that we believe are impactful. And unlike some accelerator programs, our team has access to research and experts across climate and energy sectors from both our internal D3 team and the wider RMI team. So specifically, the D3 team is constantly developing thought leadership and investment theses focused on the technology, market, and investment aspects of the energy transition. And many of our startups have found these pieces to be validating for their solutions. It's helped them point to our research, for example, as a credible source for potential investors and partners. And D3 startups also have access to these experts within D3 and the wider RMI team to ask questions, test hypotheses, and access additional research. So those are really valuable connections that we can also make. So jumping to the next one, knowledge sharing. So in learning. So lastly, our D3 program offers many resources and programming on a regular basis throughout your 18 months. So on the calendar on any given month, you could find a peer-to-peer event, so focused on your particular sector where you can connect with folks from around the world. Opportunities for startup showcases. We just had one earlier today on renewables where we brought in partners, investors, and we had 5 of our startups featured and pitching and answering questions, really engaging session. Or we may have a policy session covering the latest federal guidelines with our RMI friends. So although we're running a virtual program, it's not just those virtual events I just mentioned. We also will have in-person opportunities. Just next week, a lot of our team is going to be at Verge in California, along with many of our startups. And we're also going to be hosting a side event there, and we're able to access discounted and free tickets for our startups as well. We've done the same this year at conferences across many geographies, and we're always adding more to the calendar. I checked today, and there are a ton more already happening this year, which is crazy to think. And finally, we're building a database of off-the-shelf digital resources and already have a broad network of exclusive discounts from service providers that serve the climate community, and they share their expertise as well as discounts with our portfolio. And we really never stop thinking of ways that we can add to all of this. So there's always more coming up. So on that note, I will pass it over to my colleague Anna Sophia, who will dive in a little deeper on some of the additional support that we offer in our focus cohorts.
Yeah, thanks, Maddie. Hey, everyone. My name is Anna Sophia. As Maddie mentioned at the beginning, I am a manager here at Third Derivative, building out our industrial innovations portfolio. I want to tell you a little bit more about one of the ways in which we continue to invest in the support we can offer and our diversity in our portfolio. And I think one of the great things about being a nonprofit and being an accelerator is that we get to be super focused on accelerating the most critical climate technologies. That means that sometimes we find these really unique opportunities to invest with some partners on resources that provide a deeper level of support to a group of our startups. And if we go to the next slide, we have done this a couple times already. The first time we did this was with our first gigaton captured program. This was an opportunity to leverage RMI's expertise in climate removal technology and a generous philanthropic investment from the Grantham Foundation, where we built this program to support startups focused on carbon dioxide removal. Our goal in this program was to convene these carbon removal startups in addition to supporting ecosystems so that we could drive down the cost of these technologies and increase deployment of these technologies. And the way that we did that was really specific to the challenges of these carbon removal technologies. We were able to provide third-party techno-economic assessments, life cycle assessments that then these startups could leverage for their investor pitch conversations. We did specific showcases to increase the exposure and credibility of our startups. And these very targeted, focused programming allowed us to really support our startups with fundraising, with deployment, with partnership opportunities. We've also done this on the next slide in our Clean Mobile Power initiative, where we leveraged a very unique opportunity to partner with Netflix and Disney to support zero emission alternatives to diesel generators in order to support them in decarbonizing the film and TV industry. The 10 companies that were part of this cohort got access to more than 150 free hours of coaching and educational material that specifically provided them support to deploy their solutions in the entertainment industry. This program also did some novel things, like they're working right now on designing these testing days where they're able to facilitate deployment in real live situations where they can get some rapid feedback from industry partners. In our current cohort, on the next slide, I'm super excited to share that there are two areas where we're really investing in being able to support our upcoming startups. The first is a significant investment in our ability to support companies either based in Asia or those hoping to deploy technologies in the region. We're currently finalizing an Asian-focused ecosystem partnership. If you have questions about this, my colleague Ali is on the line, and in our Q&A session, she can help us answer some questions about this. But this will significantly allow us to make connections with investors and deployment partners in this geographic area. The second thing, which I'll spend a little bit more time talking about, is our focus on our industrial innovators. So as you saw in that graph that Maddie showed at the beginning, industrial startups already make up about a third of our portfolio. But when we really dove deeply into this portfolio, we realized that we needed to double down on innovations that were targeting decarbonization of industrial commodities, in particular, those of steel, cement, and chemicals. Because we recognize that these three industrial sectors account for more than half of industrial emissions. And we realize that these particular industrial commodities have unique challenges that require novel support. Which is why I'm super excited to be chatting about the industrial innovation cohorts. The applications are open to apply now. We are going to build 3 cohorts, one on iron and steel, one on cement and concrete, and one on chemicals. And we will also be feeding in cross-cutting solutions into those 3 industrial cohorts. And I won't talk through all the technologies that we're looking for because there are many, and there are probably many more that we haven't thought about. But a couple things that I might emphasize about the technologies we're looking for is one, that we're not just looking at supply side solutions. We're also eager to see innovators in the demand side, such as recycling, circularity, substitution technologies. We're also really excited to see enabler innovations that can speed up commercialization of other more commercially available solutions. And then, of course, we are looking for the groundbreaking technologies that really change the game on how these technologies are produced. And you can read more about and reference these technology types on our website, um, which we can share here on the link in the chat. And for these startups, we are going to offer a set of novel services. On the next slide, you'll see these matched in part to the sort of services that we've already talked about are kind of the foundational services that all our startups receive. But what you see here is that we are able to really target and curate the sort of services that we offer to the specific needs of our industrial innovators. So we'll have a curated list of mentors that have been working in these industries. We will be curating all types of funding support. So this could be dilutive, like VC, but also non-dilutive funding, like federal funding, government funding from a variety of sources. We're really hoping to create high value industry connections, including with our D3 corporate partners. So I think Lindsay was talking a little bit about who's already in our network, but related to industry, I'll just highlight Toyota, CBRE, Tech Energy Ventures, which is the CVC arm of Technic Group, Shell, BHP, Amazon, Microsoft, and we'll be announcing in the next couple of days some other really exciting corporate partners that we're bringing to the table. But we also hear from our startups that sometimes connections to peers or other industrial ecosystems are really valuable. So we'll be bringing this all together. And then this is the part that I'm really excited about because we can really leverage our connection to our climate aligned industry team, which is our team at RMI that has spent over 4 decades working on industrial insights across the globe. So we're building out a set of programming that we will work with our startups to tailor in order to unlock some of the challenges that our startups face. And lastly, we're hoping to offer pro bono or discounted services. These could be things like we've offered in the past, like grant writing support, consulting to do things like technical economic analysis, piloting opportunities. It will really be tailored based on the needs of our startups. So with that, I will say, although we are targeting what we're doing to the startups that will join, we're going to retain the flavor of third derivatives programming. In particular, we will make sure they're ecosystem focused, tailored and light touch to meet the specific needs of the cohort, and will be at no cost to our startups. So if all of this is seeming interesting to you all, and you're wondering how to apply to this specific industrial cohort, you can apply on the regular application page. There's going to be a portion that points out the industrial innovation cohorts, and we'll give you the option to self-select to be considered, not just for the general cohort, but also for this focus cohort. And with that, I will pass it back to Maddie, and I really look forward to answering your questions about what we're building.
Amazing. Thanks so much. So yes, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we're able to answer your questions now. So please do enter those into the Q&A box there, but also happy to start us off with some frequent questions that we see from the audience. So maybe the first one I'll throw to Lindsay. Lindsay, can you tell us a little bit more about the typical traction or milestones that you value in startups that are accepted into the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one thing I mentioned was our minimum requirement in terms of readiness is TRL 4. I will say I saw on the poll, there's a good number of you that are kind of TRL 1 through 3. So if you feel like you're on the cusp and you're soon to hit TRL 4, we would still kind of encourage you to apply. We like to kind of keep track on, where the innovations are so we can encourage development that might be helpful to get you to that TRL 4 sooner. Um, but aside from that, in terms of traction, what we look for kind of varies by the stages that our startups are at. So different companies and different technologies will have different milestones. Broadly, though, some of these indicators might include completed pilots for startups that are a little further along, number of customers, funding that's been raised, or grants awards that have been won. Um, even things just like LOIs or commitments from corporates for pilots or interests like that. Those are all things that we look for in terms of traction.
Thanks so much. Perfect. Thanks, Lindsay. Maybe another question I've got for you here and for our whole team is, do we only invest in hard tech companies, or are we looking at software as well? If you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So third derivative, in Maddie's introduction, we do tend to focus in on hardware, just given that it's been neglected from the VC community and is really critical for climate mitigation, climate abatement. That said, we do also accept software solutions, especially those that can help advance or propel the deployment of really critical hard tech solutions. So some examples, and I'm leaning on my building sector side here, but we have some examples in like building design software, software that helps with fast track permitting, that type of thing. So we accept both.
Perfect. Thanks. And we have a question here. Do you need to have a business that's clearly focused on the industrial sectors you listed, or can it be another sector such as decarbonization of the building space that leans on tech? Yeah, I'll throw Anna Sophia if you want to.
Yeah, happy to. We are open to seeing innovators that will benefit from the sort of ecosystem that we are cultivating. So what that means in real words is that we are looking for innovators where their target markets are in those three industrial commodity areas. So are they focused on on a market that is targeting steel, cement, or chemicals related to plastics? We are, as you saw, open also to cross-cutting solutions, such as industrial heat, carbon capture technologies, technologies that enable the use of renewable energy in these industrial sites. But what we think will make this program especially useful for folks is if they are targeting one of these key areas, since most of the programming will be oriented into these industrial sectors. I think if you're still on the fence after that, I suggest you mark yes in consideration. And then when we are evaluating the applications, we can decide whether it makes more sense for the industrial cohort or for our general cohort.
Thanks. Yeah, Lindsay,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add, so that's for our industrial innovations cohort. On top of that, or at the same time, we do have our general cohort that's launching as well. So Peter, for building sector play, that would go into the general cohort most likely. So accepting all of those sectors more broadly as well. Just the focus cohort opportunity that Anna Sophia has highlighted is targeted on the three industrial categories.
Fantastic. Another question we have here, would you consider project development startup companies in clean firm power? I don't know if Lindsay, that's probably best suited for you.
Yeah, I would say yes. Again, if you meet kind of the minimum requirements we have around climate abatement potential, this partly depends on where geographically you're located and the approach you're taking. So would encourage you to apply, and we would go through the evaluation process for that.
Amazing. Another question here, anything that startups should be aware of if they applied in the past and are interested in applying again for an upcoming cohort? Maybe for Lindsay, that's probably best to ask you, Anna-Sophia. I know things are new.
Yeah, of course. We strongly encourage startups to reapply. We have a couple startups in our portfolio that were accepted on their fourth application. And what that means is it actually allows us to kind of track the progress of a company as they develop. A lot of times in the application and review process, we're able to provide very specific feedback on what we would need to see in order to accept a company, which can be incredibly helpful for that company's growth. And so then if the company reapplies and they've met those milestones or that specific topic we encourage, then it's great to see that. And that's the traction we need to see in a lot of cases. So if you've applied before, don't hesitate to apply again. We kind of love to see our companies grow.
Yeah, completely agreed there. And then just a reminder for folks, you feel free to put questions in the Q&A box. We're still able to take a few more, so please do enter those in. And then maybe in the meantime, if we can chat a little bit about how we serve startups in different geographies, given that we're taking startups from across the world, be really interested in hearing from both of you on that, and then also happy to add a little bit from the startup support side as well.
And Sophia, do you want to start on that one?
Sure. Well, one of the things that is really fantastic about our third derivative program is that we get to leverage the broader ecosystem of RMI. At RMI, if we've talked already about, we have over 750 staff all over the world that have been working on really understanding the markets, the regulations, and the policies across the world. What that means practically for our startups is that we can offer a deep level of insights to startups that are thinking about what market they should be working in, that are in a wide variety of markets that they're already based in, but trying to understand how do they engage with the resources or the market or the regulations and where they are based. Um, and it really helps us, our global reach really helps us also make connections with a variety of partners, not just investors or corporations, but other supporting ecosystem support like mentorships or opportunities to showcase your technologies and innovation. Um, Lindsay, what would you add? And then Ali, if I know you're on the line, if you wanted to add anything else on our upcoming investment in our Asia portfolio, would appreciate that as well.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great coverage. Would love, Ali, you're welcome to join in on the Asia component. The one thing I would say is we're constantly expanding our knowledge base, our impacts, and our kind of personnel in various areas. And so even for startups based in North America, your solution the market for it might be better suited elsewhere. And that's expertise that we have and we're able to kind of leverage from RMI people globally, as well as our corporate VC partners and even our staff globally. So even regardless of where you're based, if your market is somewhere else, we're most likely able to support that. But yeah, Ali, if you want to talk about the Asia specific.
Sure, happy to. Hi, everyone. So as Anna-Sophia mentioned, hopefully we can share more details soon, but we will be investing a lot in building out our Asian and specific kind of countries and geographies within Asia ecosystem support over the next few months. And so right now we do have a very strong foothold in India. 2 of our staff members are there in RMI India. RMI has a sister organization in India with many staff as well. We also have a handful of Singapore-based startups and then smattering throughout other countries. And so if you are interested, if you're from those markets or interested in deploying in those markets, we encourage you to apply and hopefully can share more news soon.
And Ali, maybe just a quick follow-up on that. We had a question just generally about kind of what qualifies for an Asia focus. So if you're a company that's interested in promoting technology in Asia, but maybe you're based in the States or somewhere else, does that qualify? And can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the way that I envision these additional supports are kind of how Anna Sophia was mentioning the resources and support we've provided our other focus cohorts in the past. So you would be accepted if, let's say, you're an industrial focused company, but also wanting to deploy in Asia. You can be a part of the industrial focus cohort that Anna Sophia was mentioning. We'd also get this additional support. So we're building out our corporate and investor ecosystem partnerships, specific mentors, and other support resources on deploying in specific geographies. And so we would be able to kind of just provide with additional support while also having you go through the general or other specific sector-based cohorts as well.
Thanks. I think you all covered it. Appreciate the answers. Maybe another question I'd be really interested to hear from kind of everyone on this is, what do you see as the key value prop that Third Derivative offers to startups? I know there's a lot, so we may have different views, but would love to hear all of you speak to that. Maybe start with Anna Sophia.
Yeah. Well, I have been at, I'll preface by saying that I have been an RMI across a variety of teams for the last 7 years. And I have seen firsthand the deep level of rigor and engagement that our RMI staff have across all of these industries. I think for me, what makes this accelerator so unique compared to all the other climate tech accelerators around the world is that that we are able to move beyond surface level advice of specific sectors. And we can get really specific about that Minnesota regulation that you don't know how that quite fits in with your particular innovation. We can answer questions about our future perspectives on what the steel industry is going to look like in Europe and Africa, because we have over almost 40 years of experience doing deep thought leadership and deployment of innovations in all of these areas. So for me, I think what is especially exciting is that with Third Derivative, you not only get access to all these resources, but you have really nerdy friends to join you along the way to figure out how to implement your technology in these really challenging sectors.
Lindsay, if you want to go next.
Sure, yeah. I would echo Anna Sophia. I think we hear a lot that not just D3 technical expertise and kind of industry expertise in this investment space, but also RMI expertise is a huge value add. I think one thing I've heard a lot is just kind of the flexibility of our program is a major value add for startups, and that we work specifically with each startup to help them where they are and with what they need and the challenges they're going through specifically. A lot of other programs can be a little bit more rigorous in terms of in-person requirements or very structured programming, but I think the flexibility and the tailored approach we offer is something I've heard is a really major value add. But yeah, Maddie and Ali, I'd be curious what you'd say as well.
Yeah, Ali, maybe if you could go next.
Going later is always hard. You guys both stole mine, but I think I would echo what Anna Sophia said. I've also been on a few different teams at RMI, so leveraging our internal expertise, and I think just the ecosystem that D3 is able to bring together between leveraging our partners, RMI's partners, and expertise, and our mentors is just a really, really unique experience. So not much more to add than that.
Yeah, agreed. It is hard to go last, put myself in that position. But I agree with everything everyone said. And I think just the diversity of our team, we're really across different areas of expertise, as well as really around the globe. Our RMI team and even our D3 team is located around the world. So we really are able to kind of support folks on the ground with connections that we have, which is really exciting to see. So I think with that, we will close off today. Really wanted to thank everyone again for coming. We really appreciate you giving us your time today. And again, applications are due on October 26th, which is very, very soon. So please do get those in. Really look forward to seeing them and reading them. And thank you again for your interest in third derivative. Have a fantastic rest of your day.